at the port of northeast Minneapolis. It's like California, Long Beach, or wherever, without the ocean and of the ocean view. It's very much a commodity yard nowadays, as opposed to trains being worked on. There's really none being worked on for the most part there. They might occasionally bring in a wrecked train and just store it there for the time being, but they aren't doing that kind of work at Shoreham Yards that probably these folks' relatives experienced when there was up to 1,000 workers, and it was its own village. They even grew their own flowers for the passenger trains that were coming in and out of Shoreham at one point many years ago. And now we're told by the railroad that there could be maybe 10 workers at that site working for the railroad. So the operations are a container from China or Asia comes in through Vancouver in Canada and then gets on a Canadian Pacific train and comes down through here. A lot of the commodities are electronics from Asia. So the methods nowadays are it's intact. Your train carries the container directly from the ship to here, and then a truck comes in and takes it to wherever, Walmart's warehouse or what have you. Some of it is also bulk transfer to where the commodity might be forms of grain that are vacuumed out of the train car. But it's an operation where trains or trucks are coming in to get the commodity and take it away. And a lot of the noise we do here is trains being put together as they move the cars around. And that's a big concern. I live up in the Wake Park area, and 2, 3 in the morning, it's very common to hear like an explosion going off. And if you don't know what it is, it's really alarming at first. And I joke that people in my neighborhood, if we were attacked by Al-Qaeda, probably wouldn't even call 911. They would just say it's Shoreham Yards. So, I mean, it's ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's just crazy, and then other times it's peaceful as all get out. That's been a really difficult issue dealing with, because they are potentially a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week operation. They can be. So we've tried to talk to our elected officials about some of the difficulties of living by a 230-acre parcel that might have and does have toxic commodities stored there, is noisy. And then we have the 18 acres along Central Avenue that I think most people are aware of. It is for sale or lease. Right now it has been off and on in 12 years for sale. It went off the market in about 2000 when they realized the pollution was more extensive than they originally thought. And at that time, some of you probably remember this, that there were some proposals for development that actually made it to the city council level of approval. Gordon Awesome had a plan for phasing in. It's a big site, it's expensive, so a lot of the proposals wouldn't need to be phased in. And he had an idea that the community seemed to really like. It was high-tech industrial, so 21st century type of industrial, not 19th century type of industrial with smokestacks and dirty things. It was more playing on the focal point tenant was going to be a cardiac device maker who needed more room. And so playing on the proximity to Medtronic on one end and the University of Minnesota on the other end, we thought it was perfectly positioned. It was a rare opportunity in Minneapolis to have 18 acres, pretty much vacant except for what we thought was a great historic building that could be renovated to really be an asset for Central Avenue and our community and all of Minneapolis for that matter. The land was taken off the market, so that fell by the wayside. And in the meantime, then lots of other proposals have come about more recently with this mayor's great city design team. That's the boards that are up here on the floor behind me. And that was really a great coup for SAC and Northeast Minneapolis, quite frankly, to be chosen for that. It was very competitive. There weren't many groups in Minneapolis that were chosen for that. I think there was maybe 7 total. And what the Mayor's Great City Design Team means is a design charrette, which is a process where architects and in this case real estate professionals, marketing professionals all came together with the community, talked about what are your ideas, what would you like to see here. It's clear over all these years that people want to keep that historic roundhouse. It's part of it has been demolished, but there's still a huge will to keep that historic piece in there and then build upon that and the rest of the site. And there's 3 scenarios here, and everybody was so excited about it. But the team of architects and real estate folks were so excited about it too. Normally they whittle it down to 1. In this case, they were so excited about all 3 scenarios. They said, we're going to mock up all 3 for you because this is such a big project. It's got attention from throughout the metro area, from these the top names in architecture, as well as a very large national or international real estate marketing outfit too. So we tried to use that, and then the Central Avenue master plan, and then the reuse plan. We thought these 3 pieces were all coming together for a perfect storm to say, here's what we can do with the Canadian Pacific Railway. But with this site, would you work with us? And I think that's where I'll turn it over to Kevin, because that's been a very difficult road trying to entice them into a conversation about getting rid of what I consider as a resident who drives by here and lives here. It's a blighted black hole, and I think something has got to be done with it because I see the blight creeping out into our neighborhoods and affecting our property values and people wanting to come to Central Avenue or live here, build here, have a business here. I think it really is a detriment to our neighborhood that we'd like to see fixed, and we think it'd be a huge opportunity, a great opportunity for Minneapolis to get behind this. We heard, and I'll just say one more quick thing before I turn it over to Kevin. We heard 10 years ago or more, we heard Shoreham Yards is next in line after the Sears project. The global market is completed. That happened. Then we heard there's no money. Then we heard West Broadway needs our attention. Now we're hearing other things. In our last November meeting, Kevin was there. The other Kevin Roy, council member, was there, and Kara Latowski from the mayor's office was there. And we had a pretty good discussion, I thought, about why do we keep falling to the bottom of the list or the back of the class? Why aren't we at the head of the class after all these years to get something done here? So, Kevin, on that note, unfortunately, take it from there.
Well, I was happy that Gail was going to talk first because I'm not a morning person at all. And now I'm almost awake. Not quite there. And I'm going to keep my comments brief, in part because Mike Christensen here, who was kind of modest about his role, was actually the head of my department. He's the director of community planning and economic development. He may want to say a few words. And then Councilmember Reich is here also, and he's been involved in this much longer than me. I worked for the city for 4 years. I'm a project coordinator in the business development section of CPED, and that's why I was assigned this project when I arrived at the city. The project coordinators that work for the city basically have either topic area responsibilities or geographic area responsibilities. Shoreham Yards is an example of a geographic area that was assigned to me. About 3/4 of my workload actually is in another area. I coordinate the city's brownfield grant programs. So when someone has a contaminated site and looking for funding to clean it up, I work with them to find grants from BEAD, from the Met Council, and from Hennepin County to basically investigate cleanup sites. So that's what I do most of the time, but I'm assigned other projects both in the northeast sector and other parts of town. There are other city staff members who are also knowledgeable about Shoreham Yards, and I think it's important to talk about sort of who does what. Because I'm in business development, my role primarily is to try to establish and maintaining a good working relationship with CP Rail so that if or when they are ready to develop portions of their property, we're positioned to assist them to the extent that we can, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. There are a number of planning-related issues that come up whenever you talk about Shoreham Yards and future development there. I'm not a planner. We have city planners who are knowledgeable. Many of you may have met Hyla Mays. She's one of the planners that's very familiar with what has happened there in the past and what's sort of envisioned there for the future. So if you have questions about long-term plans for Shoreham Yards in terms of zoning and land use, she's a good person to talk to. If you give me a call or email me, I'll put you in touch with her. Also, there's a lot of interest in the Roundhouse. The city's planning division has a heritage preservation section and heritage preservation staff members who are more knowledgeable about those issues than me. There's a guy named Brian Schaefer who's been assigned to the Shoreham Roundhouse and is knowledgeable about those issues. Again, I can put you in touch with Brian if you've got heritage preservation issues. But back to the business development things. As Gail mentioned, there was a point in the past where CP Rail expressed an interest in developing a portion of the site. And there was a request for proposals or RFP process that the city was actively involved in. I wasn't around at the time. And as Gail indicated, there were some proposals that were submitted. They got a lot of public discussion at the time, a lot of community input. When they got to the end of that process, CP Rail basically, as Gail said, took the property off the market. And what they indicated at the time was that as they were going through the process and analyzing development proposals, it became apparent how contaminated the site was. And they didn't believe that it was really appropriate or even possible to proceed with development until the site was cleaned up. So that's what's happened over the last couple of years. As Gail said, if you drive by or if you drive in, you're going to see a lot of pipes running along the ground and little houses and things going on. There's a couple types of contamination they're dealing with there. Some of it is soil contamination, and a lot of the contaminated soil has already been hauled away. There are vapors in the soil which are being vented off, and there's some groundwater contamination that's also being dealt with. And that's been in progress for a number of years. It's not quite done yet, but they're getting close to the end of the road. There may be another year or two left. Experts come and talk with Gail and others at the SAC meetings on a regular basis to give them updates. Part of the reason I passed this around, this is a black and white copy of a page from the city's website. And if you, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the location. You can go to that if you want. I should have made a color copy because in black and white you can't see that there's a number of links embedded in this. But one of the links toward the end is a site that Canadian Pacific maintains where they have lots of environmental records related to Shoreham Yards. And if you have an interest in that, the site contains, as of a couple weeks ago, it had 687 documents. So if you go there and read 2 a day, you can get through it in a little less than a year. But I think everything you want to know about the condition of the property is probably in those documents. Although I work in brownfields contamination, I haven't been actively involved in this in part because they haven't sought any grant funds. Typically you can get grant funds only if you're not the responsible party. You know, if you buy a site from someone else and someone else contaminated it, you can get help for cleaning it up. The situation with Shoreham Yards is that all the contamination there basically is from the Shoreham Yards operation or from its lessees, including Ashland. So those are the parties that are paying for it. And since they didn't need and didn't qualify for grants, the city really didn't need to get involved. So the work out there is being supervised not so much by the city, but more by the MPCA and the Department of Health and other regulatory agencies. And those are the groups that send representatives to the SAC meeting to talk from time to time. So that's one of the things you can get from this page of the city's website. You can get that link to that repository of environmental documents, which is very handy, frankly. It beats going to an office and kind of digging through dusty boxes and things like that. There's also a link on here for the Shoreham Roundhouse reuse study. That's right at the end of the background section here. If you click on that, it'll take you to a document that was prepared in 2008, and it's been amended and updated periodically since then. The reason that document exists is that when I first began going to Shoreham meetings 4 years ago, it was apparent that there was a high level of interest in the Roundhouse, whether it had redevelopment potential, its current condition, et cetera, et cetera. So staff members went to the City Council and to upper-level management at CPAD and asked for funding to conduct this Roundhouse study. So we got some experts involved. We met with SAC periodically. We interviewed people in the community. We got information in there about the history of the property, and it's interesting to hear that there are people here who had relatives and ancestors that worked there. I found a lot of that. For long-term Northeast residents, it's hard to find someone who doesn't have some connection to what happened at the rail yard in the past.